Tonight, peace talks see no progress as Russia ramps up attacks on Ukraine.
This war will have no winners, only losers.
Fighting continues into its third week with civilian deaths climbing as Russia expands its targets into the western part of Ukraine. Plus,
it affects your whole life. You need somewhere to live.
Above guideline rent increases are pricing some Toronto tenants out. Fed up, they're calling on the province to change the rules. And
as you can see, it's happening way too frequently and it's way too dangerous.
Residents on Parkside Drive say accidents keep happening and they're banding together to once again call for action to make their roads safer. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. Now, as Russia ramps up its attacks across Ukraine, the UN Secretary General says it's time to stop the horror unleashed on civilians.
With each passing hour, two things are increasingly clear. First, it keeps getting worse. Second, whatever the outcome, this war will have no winners, only losers.
A Russian missile that struck a residential building today killed at least 2 people in Kharkiv. Crews continue to search under the rubble for people still reported missing. Ukraine's second largest city has seen some of the worst shelling since the Russian assault began more than 18 days ago. But Ukraine's capital remains the main focus as Russian troops renew their push to seize Kyiv, despite strong local resistance. A fourth round of talks between Russia and Ukraine is set for tomorrow. Now, talks so far have yielded no breakthroughs. Ukraine today urged Europe's human rights watchdog to expel Russia after it was recently suspended from the Council of Europe. Meanwhile, the European Union is finalizing fresh sanctions against Russia over what it calls the barbaric invasion of Ukraine. Russia's attack on Ukraine is now rolling into its third week, with Russian forces finding new targets. Western Ukraine, a previously untouched region, is now coming into the crosshairs of Russian missiles. David Common reports from Lviv.
Tens of thousands of internally displaced people, those who live in areas being ravaged by violence inflicted by Russian troops, have moved into the relative safety of this city. They've been able to enroll some of their children in school, for instance, and yet the nights are disrupted by air raid sirens that run for multiple hours, night after night after night. But it is in places like Kyiv and Mariupol and Kharkiv, the second largest city, where the most intense violence is continuing to be felt. Bombardments of artillery, gunfights in the streets, besieged cities. Mariupol, they are having street cleaners collect the dead and bury them in mass graves because that is the only thing that can be done at this point. In Kharkiv, there are concerns that they will run out of food and water. The same situation playing out in Mariupol. And there are funerals, one of which we saw today. A man who was a teacher in a village, beloved, only recently became a grandfather, killed in Kyiv and buried today, and in fact buried just a few kilometers away from where Russian cruise missiles landed on a military base almost right against the Polish border and caused dozens of casualties on that military base, which was reportedly used to ferry Western supplied weapons and train perhaps foreign fighters at that base. There are also diplomatic efforts that continue. Russian and Ukrainian diplomats meeting by video today, set to do so again tomorrow. There are some who are optimistic that perhaps there could be a ceasefire or some kind of agreement, and yet all of this is going to have to go through Vladimir Putin's Kremlin. And to this point, they have shown an intent to cause enormous damage and have done so repeatedly, day after day. David Common, CBC News, Lviv, Ukraine.
Back home now, the number of Toronto landlords applying for above-guideline rent increases has skyrocketed in the last decade. And CBC News has learned some big corporate building owners have applied for multiple ones in that time. While they are legal and in place to help pay for major work and upgrades, some say it's time to get rid of them. Angelina King reports.
It affects your whole life.
Charlene Henry's rent has gone up higher than the provincial guideline 3 times in the last 10 years, and it could keep getting worse.
Sometimes people are deciding between food in their fridge and paying rent.
Her building is one of 5 Toronto rental properties where the owner applied for 5 or more above guideline rent increases, or AGIs, in 10 years. Before her building sold last fall, the previous landlord applied for 6 AGIs. 3 were approved and 3 are pending.
A lot of seniors in the building who are on fixed incomes, that paying $50 or $60 more a month for a whole year affects how they eat.
This year, the provincial rent increase is set at 1.2%, but a landlord can apply to charge more if they've done major capital work. If approved, some costs get passed on to tenants through an AGI, which is capped at 3% a year for 3 years. And it's happening much more often. In 2011, 252 AGI applications were filed in Ontario. By 2019, 758.
It's frustrating because I know the law is not on our side.
The provincial government is in charge of AGI rules, but some tenants and advocates say they're pricing people out of their homes and should be eliminated.
You need to do a repair, use the rent money for that. Use your profit, get a loan.
The province says AGIs are necessary to ensure units are safe and well maintained. The landlord of these 2 buildings in North York says that's why it's spent $8 million on repairs in the last 10 years. In that time, it's applied for 6 AGIs at each building, with 8 getting approved in total. This tenant says it's hard to keep up.
Especially now, like gas going up, groceries going up, it may seem like $30 a month, oh, no big deal, but it adds up in the end for sure.
Henry and other tenants asked their new landlord, Dream Unlimited, to drop the remaining AGI applications. In a statement, the company says it's reviewing the increases and is committed to working with tenants to alleviate financial pressures. In the meantime, Henry says they'll keep fighting the applications.
The renters count.
Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Unifor says its former president, Jerry Diaz, is under investigation. The largest private sector union in Canada says it received a complaint in January about an alleged breach of its constitution. Diaz went on medical leave shortly after. Then last night, he suddenly announced his resignation. The union says it will not comment further until an investigative report is released in the near future. The union representing Ontario college workers has announced a strike deadline after 3 months of negotiations failed to produce an agreement. The Ontario Public Service Employees Union represents 16,000 faculty, counselors, and librarians at all 24 Ontario colleges. The union wants their priority issues addressed, particularly those concerning workload, or have the outstanding matters referred to binding arbitration. If that doesn't happen, it says workers will start picketing as of Friday. All right, meteorologist Ian Black joins us now with a first look at the forecast. And Ian, we have some more wet weather on the way.
Well, we've got a little bit of snow to deal with that will begin just before morning tomorrow. Some showers kicking around overnight before that, but the temperatures will get down close to the freezing point. So you're going to be getting some snow, 2, 3, 4 centimeters in spots, but along the lakeshore it might even change over to rain or just be really wet snow. After you get through tomorrow, boy, does it get nice. I mean, spring-like nice. Temperatures that might actually get into the teens by the time Thursday rolls around, okay? Looks like a split decision for the weekend with some showers on Saturday, a little bit nicer on Sunday. The best part about Sunday, it's the first day of spring, right? Love it. Chance of seeing some showers here in the overnight. As temperatures drop down early tomorrow, it changes over to some snow. And again, 2, 3, 4 centimeters, certainly possible. Somewhere just around freezing overnight. And no big climb in temperatures tomorrow, only about 3 degrees. And again, not the nicest of days. You're going to be getting some snow and some wet snow or showers in spots in the afternoon. Boy, does it get nice here. Wednesday and Thursday, how about 15? How about your weekend forecast? I've got those details coming right up.
All right, thanks so much, Ian. It's been 2 years since the pandemic began, and some say enough time has passed to look back and learn from the response by governments. In Ontario, there are calls for a formal inquiry. One doctor who chaired Ontario's expert panel on SARS says these kind of inquiries are inevitable.
It would seem inevitable that we will have a variety of commissions and inquiries into the way in which COVID was managed, certainly at the federal level and at many provincial levels and beyond that, multi-sectoral and others.
Ontario has already had one commission on COVID-19, the Long-Term Care COVID-19 Commission, which found that Ontario had no plan to address the pandemic or protect residents in long-term care. Ontario's New Democrats, Liberals and Greens are in favor of a wider inquiry, though it's unclear exactly when that would happen or what it would look like. Starting today, all visitors and workers at long-term care homes, hospitals and schools will no longer be required to show proof of vaccination. But the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario is still encouraging their members to get their shots.
Our position has always been that vaccines are safe. We have pushed throughout the pandemic for our members to be prioritized for vaccines and for boosters so that there can be consistency within the system so that they can engage and that students are participating in person.
This comes ahead of a broader exit of all COVID-19 measures by the end of April. However, facilities can keep rules in place if they want to, and most hospitals say they will continue with strict vaccine mandates. Now, for many of us, our mental health has suffered during the pandemic. The past 2 years has also revealed cracks in our mental health care system. In Canada, mental health services are not standardized, which makes for inconsistencies and gaps in the quality of care. Today, the federal government announced it's working to make some changes. Ali Chiasson has more.
Having a set standard for mental health and addiction services should empower people to seek the help they need. In an ideal world, everyone would be able to access the right treatment at the right time. Establishing a national standard is a way to do that.
Standards also help develop and build public trust in services, something greatly needed in the area of mental health.
Standardized care means setting a standard for appropriate wait times, for example, and establishing other criteria as well.
Rules, guidelines, characteristics, requirements for products, processes, and services.
Dr. Rula Markoulakis works in child and youth mental health with the Sunnybrook Research Institute.
Mental health and addictions issues affect an estimated 1.2 million children and youth in Canada, yet fewer than 20% of these youth receive appropriate treatment for their needs. They may encounter difficulties transitioning from one service to the next, or they might encounter adults and providers who don't understand their needs.
The Standards Council will work with researchers like Dr. Markoulakis and people with lived experience to develop the national standard. But what about the root causes of mental health crises or challenges?
Responses to trauma, adversity, oppression, racism, homelessness, these sorts of things. These are the fundamental issues that cause people to experience significant compromises with their mental health. Without actually addressing the reasons why people experience significantly compromised mental health, in my opinion, is fundamentally problematic.
All things that have been amplified by the pandemic.
It's just expected that we go through something that is this big for this long, that we're going to see things like more anxiety, more depression, more stress, more loneliness.
Canada's first mental health minister, Carolyn Bennett, agrees this work is long overdue.
Those who were underserved by our health and mental health systems before the pandemic are suffering even more now.
The work to establish not just a better standard of care, but a standard begins now. Ali Chiasson, CBC News, Toronto.
The Minister of Transport announced today new funding to go toward critical transportation infrastructure at Pearson as the airport begins to recover from the effects of COVID-19.
Investments in our airport infrastructure are crucial to maintaining the health, safety, and security of all Canadians. Therefore, I'm pleased to announce that our government will invest more than $142 million in Toronto Pearson International Airport for critical infrastructure improvements.
This funding will go toward airfield repairs, installation of new check-in systems, and supporting COVID-19 testing and screening. The investment will also help with design work for the proposed connection between Pearson and the Eglinton LRT extension. Welcome back. A number of Toronto police facilities are reopening to the public as the threat of COVID-19 lessens. Now, all TPS divisions are welcoming the public back inside starting today. And beginning next week, Toronto Police headquarters on College Street will allow people inside daily from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. The museum and gift shop will also be reopening Monday, but the public is being asked to call ahead before visiting. And Toronto Police have opened a new downtown centre where pedestrians and cyclists can report collisions.
In the past, if you were a pedestrian or cyclist and you were involved in a collision, you would have to be obligated to go to either the North Collision Reporting Centre up in North York or the East Collision Reporting Centre out in Scarborough.
The new Collision Reporting Centre in Liberty Village will be open Monday to Fridays from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. Police have also announced a new app so pedestrians and cyclists can make a report on their phone from anywhere, including the scene of an accident. Residents on Parkside Drive in the city's High Park are once again calling for better road safety measures. They say accidents keep happening and changes aren't being implemented quickly enough. Just this weekend, a driver struck multiple parked cars along the road close to the site of a deadly collision last October. Our Jessica Ng has this story.
Around 7:20 Saturday morning, this happened on Parkside Drive. Police allege a driver lost control, spinning and hitting 4 cars parked on the residential side of the street. The motorist was charged with careless driving. Today, crews are still cleaning up the damage, towing one of the vehicles. It's jarring for residents like Faraz Golizada.
These instances happen almost every week. You know, it chills you to the bone.
The father of 2 has lived on this street for 9 years.
The number of times I'm standing on the road getting my child into his car seat, and that's exactly where the car was crashing into.
The latest incident, not even 50 meters from a fatal chain reaction crash last October. The 5-car collision killed an older couple waiting in traffic and injured 3 others. The tragic incident prompted an overhaul of safety measures on Parkside as part of the city's Vision Zero plan to reduce traffic-related incidents. Among the measures, a reduction of the speed limit there from 50 to 40 kilometers an hour and installing watch your speed devices.
And if all we've got so far are a couple signs, well, that just simply isn't going to do it. Radical changes in road safety are needed.
The city says it has already reconfigured an intersection further north, and staff are starting public consultations on a redesign of Parkside Drive this spring. In April, a speed camera will be installed.
And we should be collecting on each and every one of those tickets. The city should be funding the rebuilding of the area with those costs.
Advocates and residents agree the changes can't come soon enough.
Because unless you live here, you can't really get a true sense of just how dangerous it is.
Jessica Ng, CBC News, Toronto.
You're looking at a live shot of the Toronto skyline, partly cloudy with a few showers tonight. The wet weather will continue into the morning. Current temperatures standing at 4 degrees in this city. Let's go back to Ian now with a look at your extended forecast. And Ian will be waking up to some snowfall tomorrow morning.
Okay, not the nicest day tomorrow. We've got this sort of stationary front meandering through southern Ontario, and that tends to be the focus for any weak system that tends to come along, and that's exactly what's going to happen. So a couple of showers, change to some snow early tomorrow. Just give yourself extra time tomorrow morning to get around, okay? It's going to be a little slow out there. But there's no big storms here to talk about. It's just the focus of it is right across southwestern Ontario. Short term, it does get a lot better. Well, certainly you can see some snow kicking around tomorrow, even some wet snow and or showers, especially along the shoreline. So not the nicest of days tomorrow, but Wednesday, just clouds, some sunny breaks, and temperatures start to go up. So we've got some good news there, right? In terms of wind gusts, I don't see anything terribly strong. Late tomorrow, you might start to see some stronger gusts, but that's just a sign of milder weather to move in, right? How mild does it get? Well, check it out. How about 8 on Wednesday, 15 for Thursday? So if you can just get through that tomorrow, boy, it looks really nice. A lot of people will be taking Thursday off, right? Showers, though, cooler on Friday, still above normal temperatures. Right now, Saturday, not as nice as Sunday. Showers on Saturday, 5. Clouds, sunny breaks Sunday. Back to nice weather again on Monday. And keep in mind, the first day of spring is this Sunday. And what happens in spring? Oh, you can get some snow, sure, but beautiful looking. That's the Gatineau Hills. Thanks to Paul for sending that one in. That's a beautiful looking shot. And the birds come out in spring. Thanks to Alan for sending in that shot with the cardinals hovering around with the bird seed in behind me. That's at the Fletcher Wildlife Garden. That is a look at your weather.
Thanks so much. The boys of summer are back on the diamond after an abnormally long off season.
Nice day for a regular one.
Spring training day number 1 in the books for the Blue Jays after the MLB's months-long lockout wraps up. Spring training games will begin on Thursday. Finally tonight, a brand new art exhibit showcasing work by one of Ukraine's most well-known artists and poets opens in the city tomorrow. The Taras Shevchenko exhibit first opened in Odessa last year, celebrating Ukraine's 30th year of independence. The producer of the exhibit says while it is important now, it was just as important when it first opened.
We realize that, if we don't do this now, we will never be able to do this and we'll be putting us away and away and away. But our goal was to modernize Shevchenko because all of us know him as a portrait above a blackboard, but here we wanted to show his emotions. We wanted to show what he felt, why he was the way that he was.
It's called Immersive Shevchenko, Soul of Ukraine. The exhibit is run by Lighthouse Immersive and will only be in Toronto for 1 day. All proceeds go to the Red Cross Emergency Relief Fund for Ukraine. And that is our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. Dwight Drummond has your next local newscast tomorrow at 6. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.